Fentanyl is now in all 50 states. It's lacing every other drug, whether that's methamphetamine, heroin, marijuana, every other drug. And it's also being sold in new forms like fake prescription pills. So people think they're buying a Xanax or an Adderall or an oxycodone, and they're getting fentanyl and they're dying at record rates.
Okay, so the trend that's being talked about there has been developing for some time, and in fact has even been getting some media coverage for a bit amidst the other aspects of our complicated system of seemingly ever increasing drug overdoses. Fentanyl is an increasingly big part of the conversation. In fact, on last weekend's episode of John Oliver, he actually discussed fentanyl and how it's starting to get involved in a lot more drugs. John Oliver, I hear on Twitter, is the cause of all of our problems, but doing good reporting in this area at the very least. Anyway, over the past 4 years, the number of counterfeit pills containing fentanyl that have been seized by US law enforcement has jumped nearly 5,000%. They found more than 2 million fake pills were seized by officials in the last quarter of 2021 alone, up from 42,000 in the first quarter of 2018. The number of individual seizures involving fentanyl pills increased by 834%. Now, this is not a perfect way to approach this because of course, numbers of seizures and how you do seizures, that's a human controlled thing. Where they're putting the resources, what sorts of places they're choosing to raid, all of that can be biased in a lot of different ways, but it is difficult to deny that fentanyl is becoming more common. And you can see a chart of the rise over time. Again, take all of this data with a grain of salt because it's not perfect in any way. But some of the other trends that you might not be aware of is the increasing number of younger people who are being affected by this. Young people have been particularly hard hit recently. A Guardian analysis showed youth under 24 account for the fastest rise in drug deaths, with over 7,000 youth dying in just 2020 alone. And you can see in California now, a young person under 24 is now dying every 12 hours. They say, and again, grain of salt, a 1,000% increase over 2018. So in terms of solutions, I don't necessarily know exactly what should be done. I do think that keeping the entire meta industry in the shadows, illegal, vilified in an ongoing war on drugs that has never worked, not in its stated goals anyway. It has accomplished some things that they seem to be perfectly fine with. Hardly seems to be helping the situation, Sabrina, but it is clear that there is a human cost to this.
Absolutely, and those figures are terrifying. Just that graph alone, the fact that it jumped up 5,000% almost, that's insane.
Exactly. Yeah, and look, obviously there are, in theory, there are programs, there are centers you can set up that can help people to ensure that they are able to transition if they want to out of drug use, but also along the way are in the safest possible environment. That's sort of an approach to this that would be founded in compassion. And unfortunately, when it comes to our criminal justice system in general, and definitely the way that we approach people who are struggling with addiction, compassion has never been within 1,000 miles of our approach. All of these are potential roads we could go down. And one would hope that a silver lining, if there is one in these skyrocketing deaths, is a willingness to consider a different approach. But that so far doesn't seem to be translating. A 5,000% increase in the prevalence of these things has not indicated seemingly to the people in power that we need to approach it in a different way. But along the way, at the very least, can we fight against some of the myths? We've talked about this multiple times on the show before, but if fentanyl is gonna become more and more common, we have to at least disarm the cops' seeming willingness, eagerness to use the possible presence of fentanyl as a way to stimulate more interest in their seizures and everything. You can see in this tweet by Del Cameron, they show a vehicle that had been searched for fentanyl, and they're wearing like full-on outbreak like suits. Like the people at Chernobyl aren't this well protected, and they're acting as if the possible presence of fentanyl is reason enough to justify all of this. And of course, this is enough to justify ever increasing amounts of funding to law enforcement. And if you can really scare people, you can get them to support continuing the status quo and increasing their funding, Sabrina. So that is definitely a thing that we've seen leading up to this point. And I fear that there's not nearly enough media attention and popular pressure to change that approach.
Imagine if cops wore this level of protection in terms of fighting COVID, for example, because obviously, like nothing's going to happen to them if they touch fentanyl. It's going to be fine. But the fact that they kind of go this far as to wear such lengths of PPE,
Insane get-ups.
yeah, it's wild, and yet they wouldn't even. Many cops would not wear their masks at the height of COVID, like. And this is just in Orange County, a slightly more conservative county next to LA County, where even LA County, they were resisting masks. Many cops were resisting vaccines for the longest time, where it was they were even going through like legal action with the city. So the fact that they would wear this level of protection, it's for actual like hysterical purposes. I don't think they actually are scared. I think, they are trying to, just rile it up.
First of all, I think that is a great point when you compare it to the way that not all cops, but some cops have responded to any common sense measures to stop the spread of COVID, during the pandemic. It's like they would literally go out there with the contact full getup, but like cut out a hole over the mouth because I don't go masked. But that seemingly is their approach. I do think that there are some cops maybe that are new to it that are told that like they don't know about fentanyl. Whatever they learn about fentanyl is stuff that they'll ingest from the media, which has largely accepted the cops' narratives about this without any like talking to experts to balance it. And they're told by cops to be terrified about this. And we know that cops are very easy to terrify. They're scared of their own shadows. They're told to respond with deadly force to literally everything. Don't get mad at me. Like they're the ones who are whipping out their gun at a second's notice. And so I believe that some of them do honestly believe, and that's why you see the effects that you do, the comical videos of them passing out because they were near a car that had fentanyl or whatever. Like that could be a placebo, it could be a panic attack or whatever. But I think that there's some degree of honesty to it. When it is then taken and used for propaganda for the cops, I don't think that the leadership believes it. I think that they find this to be useful. Whether for like propagandistic purposes in terms of getting people to continue to support the war on drugs, or for financially their goals. But the entire thing is ridiculous. And if we could just get through to people that yes, it is dangerous, that it is out there, and especially people consuming drugs and not knowing that fentanyl is in it or what percentage are fentanyl, that is dangerous. They're the ones who are potentially being victimized, not the cops who are nearby at that time. Like we can be worried, but we should be worried about the right part of this story. That's all I'm saying.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.